For generations, families knew how to make food last. Not out of fear. Not because it was trendy. But because it was simply part of living responsibly. Today, most of us look inside our own kitchens and see something very different. What we have there is not really a supply. It is access. Access to the store down the street. To delivery that arrives tomorrow. To a refrigerator that never stops running. We never stop to question it because it feels permanent. But for almost all of human history, nobody lived this way. And yet families survived wars, droughts, and failed harvests. Not because they had better technology, but because they knew how to do something that we have slowly stopped practicing. Back then, food was not just consumed, it was cared for. People thought in months, not days. Meat was salted right after the slaughter. Fish was hung up to dry in the open air. Grains were stored away from moisture and pests. And vegetables were prepared at the end of the harvest to last through the entire winter. And the most remarkable thing is that this was not expert knowledge. It was simply what everyone knew how to do. It was not about fear of running out. It was about rhythm. About understanding that seasons change and harvests vary. Security came from what you did with your own hands. Over time, roads improved, cities grew, and trade expanded. And food stopped being something you preserved for months, and became something you simply restocked every week. Somewhere along the way, we let something slip. Without even noticing. Refrigerators, freezers, enormous supermarkets. All of it completely changed how food reaches your kitchen. Instead of storing for winter, families started shopping every week. Instead of preserving at home, factories started doing it for you. Suddenly you could have fresh fruit in the middle of winter. Convenience, variety, abundance. And as long as everything kept working, there was no reason to question any of it. But something quietly faded away. Ordinary people stopped knowing how to cure meat, how to dry food, how to ferment. Not because these methods stopped working, but simply because they were no longer needed day to day. And you might be thinking, we have moved forward. Why go back? Here is why it still matters. Most kitchens today were designed for fast consumption, not for lasting storage. Fresh produce depends on refrigeration. Meat depends on electricity running around the clock. Even pantry staples depend on modern packaging and climate control. But the science behind food preservation has never changed. Salt still draws moisture out of meat. Fermentation still creates an environment where harmful bacteria cannot survive. Drying still removes the water that causes food to spoil. This is not old-fashioned thinking. These are natural processes, tested and passed down through generations. What used to be common knowledge now feels like a lost skill. But the principles are exactly the same. And once you realize that, your relationship with food changes. It is not about giving up grocery stores or living off the grid. It is about remembering that old knowledge still works. And here is the best part. You do not need to become an expert to benefit from this. Storing beans and rice in a sealed container. Making a simple pickle. Trying a basic fermentation just once. That is enough to reconnect you with the process, without changing your daily routine. The benefit is gradual, almost invisible. You start paying closer attention to what you buy, what you store, what you throw away. You waste less. And over time, that builds a quiet kind of confidence that does not depend on an app, a delivery driver, or anyone else. If you want to know where to start, there is a book I came across that brings together 126 of these forgotten methods, explained step by step with photos, in a way anyone can follow. It is exactly the kind of thing past generations would have written down, if they had needed to put everything they knew into one place. The link is right here in the description. Nothing extreme, just a starting point, because the real shift was never about electricity, or the system breaking down. It was about memory. We did not just hand off the work. We handed off the knowledge. And when that knowledge leaves the home, dependence grows without us even noticing. It settles in quietly, until one day you look back and realize something was lost. But knowledge can come back the same way it left. Not through fear. Not through extremism. But through small, simple things that you bring into your daily life almost without effort. The system will most likely keep running, deliveries will keep coming, shelves will stay stocked. Modern life is still one of the greatest advantages any of us have ever had. But when you understand how food used to be preserved, and how simple those methods really were, something shifts. Comfort becomes a choice, not a crutch. And once you start to see the knowledge we quietly replaced, you begin to find it everywhere.